Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we continue our Fantasy Files series, second to last one, people, with a look at what keepers we should be looking for in redraft leagues. I mentioned this at the end of the Wednesday pod with Dwayne. Please check that out if you haven't already. We go through everything that happened in week one of the preseason. But basically, I'm in all types of leagues, and I'm sure a bunch of you out there have different formats as well. And the keeper league, I think, is one of the more interesting ones. We have our redraft where it's just one and done. We pick a new squad. We have dynasty where we have that team forever. And then there's that weird in-between area, the keeper, where you can keep one or two guys at usually the value they cost next year for those that haven't played. For example, if I drafted Kareem Hunt in the 10th round last year, theoretically, I can now keep him again this year. I just lose my 10th round pick. Some leagues bump it up a spot, so I would lose my 9th round pick. Other teams, I saw one person DM me, they had it so anyone after like round 7 just gets that 7th round pick, because sometimes, I'm in a 8-man league. I know, lame, but I got Antonio Gibson like the 15th, pretty huge advantage. So if you had that, round 7 or later, everyone just counts as losing your 7th round pick. That might be a good way to kind of remove the extreme discretions from your player pool like that. But basically, going through my leagues last year and this whole keeper idea, I just noticed that, I think I had Gibson, Dobbins, and another rookie on like one team. And I was checking out all the potential keepers, and it just got me thinking, like, how often do running backs start to blow up in their second years? And is that ADP swing something that we can maybe prioritize in these sort of fantasy football formats? So first of all, yes, second year running backs generally ball the hell out compared to a lot of other positions in that year. Last year, I did a study where I looked at every top 24 performer at every position from 2010 to 2019. And at running back in year 2, 16% of the top 24 PPR performers were second-year running backs. Year 3 was 21%. And if you just look around the rest of the positions, those are two of the strongest correlations we have in the entirety of, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and trying to find where those jump years are. So veteran quarterbacks, 10 plus years, tend to do pretty damn well. Same thing with the tight ends. And we also see a nice leap for third-year receivers. Those are the only ones over 16%. And we also see third-year running backs go to 21%. So second and third-year running backs have been the cream of the crop in fantasy land. And so with this in mind, I went ahead and looked to see what sort of relationship we can expect from our players' ADP in year 1, and then going ahead to year 2. First of all, a couple things with this study that I had to do. I'm only looking at top 3 round running backs because remember, the goal here is for us to get a player that can help us in 2021 and then be a huge value in 2022. Drafting like 6th or 7th round running backs because you think the depth chart looks fine next year, that's probably not helping you this year at all. And that's also taking a massive leap of faith that, our ability to forecast the future is going to be correct 12 months down the road. So, one of the studies I did earlier this summer was looking at how draft capital can help show us how rookies will be in fantasy football, and it's incredibly correlated. If you just ignored every single rookie evaluation profile you've ever seen and blindly followed draft capital, at least for fantasy, you'd be in a pretty good spot, because 80% of top performing rookies, which for quarterback is top 12, tight end top 12, running back, wide receivers top 24, 80%, every single position, were drafted in the top 3 rounds over the past decade. So we have some exceptions. There's just not that many. These are the only running backs that have posted top 24 rookie production that weren't drafted in the top 3 rounds since 2010. Roy Halou, Zach Stacy, Jordan Howard, Alfred Morris, Philip Lindsay, and James Robinson. So we either had guys like, James Robinson or Philip Lindsay just fall into these really just wide open backfields, or we had guys like Alfred Morris, Roy Halou, Shanahan coaching them. Jordan Howard, Zach Stacy also fit that, just having the wide open backfield pretty much laid up for him. So I'm only looking at rookie running backs in the top 3 rounds of drafts and seeing how their ADP changed from year 1 to year 2. Ideally, this will give us a solid rookie performer at a reasonable cost that then we can get the ADP to spike in year 2. Ideally, but we got to check the numbers, and spoiler alert, I guess I'm not spoiling it, I'm telling you right now in the middle of a podcast, it looks very good for taking these rookie running backs with with the intent of keeping them ahead in year 2. Just so you know, I did remove some guys like TJ Yeldon, Ronald Jones, who just weren't even good enough to have an ADP in the first place. Also had guys like Cam Akers, Deontay Foreman have injuries in their second season or even their first season. In Deontay's case, unfortunately, where they just didn't apply from the pool. So just a handful of guys I threw out to get about my 35 player sample. And people, 28 of 35 rookie running backs drafted in the top 3 rounds since 2015 saw their ADP increase into the next year. 28 of 35. And the only real exceptions we had were Rashad Penny, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Those are the only first down backs to see their ADP actually drop since 2015. And then also Amir Abdullah, unfortunately couldn't keep that year 1 preseason momentum going. And then finally Tevin Coleman, Darrell Henderson, David Montgomery, and Royce Freeman. Those are the only 7 running backs to have their ADP decrease. Now, we had some stay the same, stay at 0, but by and large, people, we have just seen some major rises out of this group. Alvin Kamara was the RB 52 going into his rookie year. Next season, he was the RB 5. David Johnson went from RB 46 to RB 1. Antonio Gibson's RB 34 to RB 12. Those were some of the other really big ones. Nick Chubb went from RB 49 to RB 8. Miles Sanders, RB 29 to RB 10. Todd Gurley from RB 27 to RB 2. Like, the differences are just absurd with some of these. And just so we're clear, I'm going by position rank here. I know I'm saying ADP, which is usually overall. I'm just saying positional RBs. Todd Gurley was the 27th ranked RB going to his rookie year. The next year he was 2nd overall. Unfortunately, didn't meet that for those that can remember some of those Jeff Fisher Rams years, but you get the point. It's truly just been a great system for identifying players to keep in the next round. So all in all, we had the first round running backs average plus 5.3 spots moving up in the running back ranks. Second and third round qualifiers went up plus 9.2 spots on average overall, regardless of draft round, plus 8.1. So really, people, plus 8 spots for these running backs, that's huge. That's in position ranks. So that's honestly going to cover usually 2 to 3 rounds in overall, just draft positions. So what we can do with this now is try and make it actionable for 2021. So we unfortunately only had 4 main running backs this year. Only 4 running backs were drafted in the top 3 rounds. Again, we're only looking at those guys. I'm not saying Michael Carter or Ramondre Stevenson. I'm not saying these guys can't make a good impact in year 1 and then be solid keepers in the future. If you find one of these guys, I listed the group for you. If you have your James Robinson or your, Alfred Morris back in the day, your Roy Halou, if you're lucky enough to get one of these shots in the dark late in the draft anyway, then great. You got the guy and go ahead and keep him. I'm just saying we can't make a habit chasing exceptions, particularly not in the upper rounds of drafts. So focusing on the top 3 round rookies. First up, we have Najee Harris, current ADP. He's the RB 10. Based on what we've seen historically, we would look at him potentially as the RB 5 going to next year. I can see it. He's going so steep right now. With only rookie running backs we've actually seen boast a higher ADP than Najee since 2015 are Saquon, Zeke, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. With that said, it's all about the volume, people, and Najee's going to have more of it than just about anyone. In 2000, there were 19 running backs with at least 300 touches. In 2020, there were just 4. So Najee does look like a strong candidate to join that crew, and I think he's a perfectly good pick in the second round of these drafts. So not the best sleeper in the world. Usually we're looking for someone we can get, double-digit rounds or at least, 6, 7, 8. That's going to be going in round 1 or 2. At the same time, I've had some people just say, hey, I had McCaffrey in the first round last year. Should I keep him again? Because you have Christian freaking McCaffrey. Najee Harris is fitting the bill of someone like that, where you're going to want him on your team. Worst comes to worst, if you draft Najee in the second round, I think he's certainly going to still look like a great value at that spot next year. Now for some of the good stuff. Travis Etienne, current ADP RB 24, projected, positional ADP based on that +5 increase we've seen from first round running backs would slot him as the RB 19 in 2021. And I think that's the floor, people, because if we see this backfield convert to Etienne like we think it might as the season goes on, he's going to be a top 12 back going into year 2 with Trevor Lawrence and company next year. The pass catching potential for him is just so huge. So we didn't exactly see the slash Percy Harvin role come to fruition. Doesn't mean it won't. We saw Chip Kelly, run a real just pedestrian version of his, fast-paced offense in the preseason. We saw Cliff Kingsbury openly say he was trying to hold stuff back as well. Maybe we see Etienne get to start in the slot once the season starts and there's this whole role just out there for him. Either way, it's a situation where we have a first-round running back going as the RB24, and just historically, that's not something we see all that often. I mean, look, Gurley was the RB27, Sony Michel was the RB35, Rashad Penny was the RB37. Those are the only first-round running backs since 2015 that were cheaper than Etienne. You know, even guys like Jacobs, Fournette, I mean, they're both going top 20. Melvin Gordon went as the RB23 and wound up working behind Danny Woodhead. Like Etienne, just relative to a lot of these other first-round running backs we see in fantasy, is going cheaper. And a lot of that is because of James Robinson and even to a lesser extent, Carlos Hyde being involved in this backfield. I understand James Robinson is not going anywhere. Carlos Hyde certainly seems like someone that, wouldn't be shocked if he's not even involved this year that much, and particularly next year. I'd be very surprised if he's even brought back into the equation. Jaguars can save $2 million against the cap by releasing him at some point in 2022. So for Etienne, I think you're getting a player priced at a reasonable spot as it is. Legit has the potential for 60-plus catches, and if we can get that in fantasy land, pretty much a cheat code in full point per reception formats. And again, next year, if we see them just go to Etienne and say, hey, we drafted you in the first round, you're our bell cow, James Robinson, we appreciate you, but hit the bench, young one. This is the Etienne show. Again, he's going to be a top 12 pick. So Etienne, remember, he's in the RB dead zone, so I'm not taking him a lot of times in best ball and normal redraft as well, kind of where he's going in that 5th, 6th round area. But in keeper territory, I think he does deserve to, jump ahead of the Mike Davises, definitely the Myles Gaskins. He's well off the dead zone picture by now. The Miles Sanders of the world. I just think, if it's a tiebreaker between Etienne and a couple of these other guys in that area, yes, look ahead to 2022, take Etienne. The big two winners here, and these are the guys we need to focus on, though, are going to be Javonte Williams and Trey Sermon for very similar reasons. We have Javonte going as the RB29 at the moment, Trey Sermon going as the RB32. And just so we know, these ADPs are courtesy of Fantasy Football Calculator, which is, trying to do redraft. Best ball, completely different game. I understand, why the ADPs are different with these guys. Either way, that's what I'm going off of here. But so Javonte and Sermon both project to be top 2 backs in their backfields. I've heard a lot of you Sermon truthers on Twitter. A lot of you think he'll be the number 1 before too long. Javonte shares a similar sentiment with Melvin Gordon not exactly being in the fantasy community's best graces. But looking ahead to what could happen in 2022 for both is where things get very interesting, because for Javonte, Melvin Gordon, unrestricted free agent. Royce Freeman, unrestricted free agent. Even Mike Boone, like the Broncos could save $1.2 million if they decide to release him at some point in 2022. Maybe Freeman comes back. Boone should be there. Like, they're going to have more than just one running back on their entire roster. Either way, like, they traded up high into the second round to get Javonte's services, seemingly with the intention of featuring him at some point during his rookie contract. Sure looks like that will be in 2022 once Melvin Gordon is likely playing elsewhere. So again, RB29 for Williams is more than understandable right now. I have him ranked about 7-8 spots higher, just hoping that he'll take over this backfield at some point. Am I getting a ton of him in that RB dead zone and best ball land? No, I'm not. But in redraft land, I think if he can get Javonte in 6th, 7th round, even later potentially, if we're talking like an 8 or 10 man league, sign me up, because Javonte fits the mold of someone that we're going to see potentially cut his ADP, at least among the positional ranks, and even maybe overall in half by this time next year. Like, we want to talk about the Aaron Rodgers saga and where he could go. If you don't think Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater could be the Broncos quarterback next year, there's a good chance it's someone that we're a lot higher on. If Javonte is the future workhorse there, you don't need me to tell you that this dude could be flirting with a top 10, top 12 valuation by 2022. And then for Trey Sermon, it's the same thing. It's almost just even more, obvious, because Raheem Mostert, Wayne Gallman, JaMychal Hasty, and Jeff Wilson, every single one of them is an unrestricted free agent in 2022. So, hey, as much as, I've told you guys all about Raheem Mostert, he's one of my guys. I think the fact that all anyone can say negatively about the guy is that he's going to get hurt at some point. Yeah, I'm going to buy him now, because that's not a good enough reason for me. Raheem Mostert, what happens if he doesn't get hurt? We have one of the league's fastest players as Kyle Shanahan's RB1 poised to rack up touches. With that said, he is 29. I admit his injury history is not the most ideal of anyone out there. It could go right for Sermon in a big way in 2021. 2022 is where we could be looking at Kyle Shanahan's undisputed starting RB1 as Trey Sermon. So, I mean, it could make his RB32 valuation look like a joke at the moment. So to see Sermon going almost in the bottom range of the RB3 territory, I mean, he could be a top 10 running back this time next year if Mostert's gone, if Gallman's gone, if Wilson's gone, if Shanahan really just starts hyping up the Trey Sermon train, we could see this valuation look like an absolute joke. So like Williams, though, I think Sermon is, he fits the mold of someone that helps us in 2021, and he has league winning potential in 2022, because the last 3 years, as muddled as the 49ers committee system has been, Matt Breida, lead RB in 2018, finishes as the RB 26. Raheem Mostert in 2019, RB 26. Jeff Wilson in 2020, RB 31. Like, that's why the answer to Mostert versus Sermon is just yes, take them both. Both guys are being drafted at the floor from what we expect by a Shanahan back. If the Trey Sermon usage in week 1 of the preseason told us anything, it's that Wayne Gallman should not be in the picture and make this a 3-back committee. So to me, Mostert and Sermon are great values at their ADP. And honestly, if I'm in a keeper league looking ahead to next year, I probably would prioritize Sermon slightly ahead of Mostert. Try to get them both. Like, I think they're both good values at that range. And I mean, this offense should be spreading it out, potentially even enough to feasibly start both in the same lineup. I just think, again, having that keeper, because who knows what is happening where he Mostert next year. And I love the guy, but I love the guy for 2021. Once we add that keeper scenario, if it's just Sermon versus Mostert in the 8th round and I can keep whoever I pick for next year, yeah, I got to take Sermon there. So same thing with Javonte Williams. So prioritize these guys and really look ahead, in the next year for this, because we don't need to go quite as crazy as some of the dynasty folks out there. But I really think Javonte and Trey Sermon, if you're going off the usual build that a lot of us seem to be loving, which is get your anchor RB early, try to get one of the big 3 tight ends, and then just load up with dope wide receivers. If you can get Sermon or Javonte just as your RB2 in round 7 or 8, yeah, it might take a couple weeks for them to really get fed, but you can find other guys down the road. Damian Harris, even like Tevin Coleman. You can find a cheap running back here and there to get you through the weeks where Sermon and Javonte maybe don't have a featured role. Again, it's that 2022 upside paired with the floor that we are getting in 2021 that makes Sermon and Javonte 2 of the best mid-round running backs you can land in fantasy football leagues with that keeper attached. So hope that helps you all out. I've gotten a bunch of, just questions throughout this offseason about who should I keep out of these guys. In general, I would just say, look at it, because I'm trying to get to all the questions, but if I miss it out or if you don't ask me, just look at the picks and see where those guys are going right now. If it's Christian McCaffrey in round 1 versus Antonio Gibson in round 9, you're absolutely taking Gibson, because the chances of you getting Gibson in round 9 are 0. The chance of you getting McCaffrey in round 1, if we have 12 teams, it's 0.08. Oh man, having to do math right here live in the pod. Pretty sure I messed that one up, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Just look at the difference in projected ADP versus where they're going, and that's what's going to tell you. 0.083. Okay, I was pretty close there with the 1/12th decimal. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I hope you all have some fantasy drafts coming up. I've been trying to get you guys ready all throughout the offseason. I will have my top 300 released on Friday. Also going to be talking to Dwayne McFarland again. We'll have a podcast up on Friday going over our top draft strategy for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, who is the guy we don't want to let get away in each of those position groups, and also breaking down where, a fade that we don't really want at value. So please check that out. Again, I think will be very helpful right before we get to these drafts. Also want to point out that Fantrax's free fantasy football league manager is the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform in the entire industry, and PFF is gearing up to play our leagues on Fantrax this season. If you're coming from another site, that is no problem. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues completely free. So create a free account now using promo code PFF at fantrax.com/PFF and get a chance to win a trip to any regular season game this year for you and your entire league, plus $6,000, people. $6,000. I've been saying Vegas is the move, but I don't know. Miami could be fun. Go in December Miami home game and just go get that warm weather. Why not? You can imagine. Promo code PFF at fantrax.com/PFF. Again, you can win a trip to any regular season game this year for you and your entire league, plus $6,000. Gotta love that. Also want to point out that Pacquiao versus Ugas is this week. I'm sorry if I botched that name. I'm not a boxing guy. I'm an MMA guy, but I respect Pacquiao, and you kings stay kings. Pacquiao's certainly a king. And DraftKings DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is offering 100-to-1 odds on a punch being landed at any point during the fight. That's right, bet 100 on either fighter, and if a punch lands during the fight, you will cash $100 in free credits. I think the only way you get screwed, remember that boxer? It was like a hilarious meme, still kind of is. 2 or 3 years ago, fight starts and he literally just walks out of the ring and walks straight back up the ramp. Unless that happens, we should be good to win $100 here. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits when you bet on either fighter to win and a punch is landed during the fight. Place your bet and watch the fist fly this weekend. As code PFF, turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. That's going to wrap up this edition of PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, always appreciate you guys tuning in the upcoming weeks. We're going to go down quickly for, the 2-3 weeks before the season we got going, go back down to 3 podcasts per week. They'll be longer, so I think you guys can still hear my voice whenever you want to feel like it. But with that said, we'll go down to 3 per week. Once the season comes, we'll have podcasts out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, pretty much every day of the week. A lot of good stuff on the way. And again, we'll keep trying to get that fantasy football championship on your mantle here in 2021. So I'm Ian Hartitz, and until next time, take care, everybody.